Welcome to Awesome Women. It's been a while, and today I'm joined by Alice Doyle. Thank you so much for coming along, Alice.
Thanks, Natalie.
Oh, it's lovely to talk to you again. Like the last time we spoke, you said some very powerful things. And one of the things that stayed with me was the things I've been looking for my whole life, or the thing I've been looking for my whole life was me. And I just thought it was such a beautiful statement and so powerful. And I know we're going to talk a lot about that kind of on your unraveling journey, as you call it, which I think is a brilliant way to talk about unmasking, because there's so many layers to it. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that today. And you're going to show some of your amazing artwork with us. We're going to have a fantastic chat. So I suppose, do you want to give us a bit of background on how you made the discovery? Not that you're autistic, but that you're a poet. I'm really interested.
Yeah, well, I suppose I think that really surprised me. I have to say that now, Evelyn. I love words. I'm really passionate about language. I'm a French teacher. I totally love language. But I never really thought about writing before, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't go looking for it, but rather it found me, I would say, rather unexpectedly, and when I really needed it most, you know. And it was, I suppose it was my inner voice finding me, my true inner authentic voice finding me to help me on my, what I would call my journey of unraveling home. That's really how I would describe it. And, you know, I think we all know when we need change in our lives, and I certainly needed change in mine. I mean, I've been a lifetime searcher. I'm one of those who have been searching for purpose since I was about 5. I have a particular way of, I suppose, meeting the world, sensing the world, and from a place of depth. And when you said there at the beginning that the thing I was looking for my entire life was me, sure, I didn't know that. You know, you look everywhere, don't you? You're trying to figure out, what is it? I don't feel like I belong. I don't feel like I fit. The thing is, I didn't fit the self that I was in, because I didn't know until a year and a half ago, less than that actually, that I was autistic or multiply neurodivergent. So they were later discoveries, you know. So yeah, so I was during lockdown. We all had a bit more time. I was working from home at the time, and of course we couldn't go out anywhere. And I have a huge garden, and I'm always working on it, you know. So I was out in the garden, and I had a particular project that I was working on, but I kind of suddenly decided I was going to the other side of the garden, and I was going to take a very different approach, and I was just going to let the ground tell me what it wanted, in a sense. And out of the blue arrived my poetic voice. And maybe I will share a poem that's really about that space.
Yes, please.
How about that?
Yeah.
There we go. And the poem is called Clearing the Ground. I spent the evening gardening my soul. I scanned the tattered landscape, the shattered pieces of my life, my heart. I gathered up the hurt and weeded false beliefs. It is time to dig a new drill of hope and sow the seeds of my future.
That is just like so gorgeous. It's obviously very personal to you.
It is. Oh, absolutely. It is. I suppose I can now, I thought, I suppose, my original, when my poetry kind of came to me, first of all, I kind of couldn't believe it. And I thought it was only a flash in the pan, and it was just a temporary thing, you know. Now I know it was waiting for me my entire life.
Wow.
It's part of who I am. And it's the path of my future. It's one of 3 paths of my future. The main things really that interest me, lots of things interest me, just like many autistic people are interested in loads of things. I am infinitely curious about learning, but this is definitely one of my paths. Yeah. So I think when we want to make change, we must clear away, clear the ground, begin again, let go of what was. It's not easy to do that, but we start from a place like that, don't we, where we know we need change.
absolutely. And I think it's you're giving a lot of yourself obviously here today, and I
Yeah.
just think it's beautiful, it's vulnerable, and I think
Mm.
there is always that fear for us, isn't there, when we realize we're autistic, and kind of what's underneath all of that, and this
Mhm.
unraveling. And
Mhm.
I just, the way you were saying, like, you've kind of been looking for purpose since you were a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I think that's it. It's like that validation as well, or kind of, and we look for it from others
Mhm.
rather than looking within. And isn't it beautiful that this is what's happened since you started looking
Oh yeah.
within?
Well,
Yeah.
I think this what you don't know. I mean, as a child, I certainly experienced the world in a very particular way. Do you know what I mean? To me, first of all, being autistic is being absolutely human, another variation of being human. But for me, it's about a particular way of connecting and meeting the world from a place of depth. And it's about everything and everyone mattering. Do you know, it's really a place of real connection and an understanding that we're not separate from the earth. Do you know, that's the sort of place, that's the place that I come from with that.
And like that's like common across different cultures. Like,
Mhm.
it's just kind of Western culture that we're like, that's kind of been imposed on us, that like we're separate from the earth,
Mhm.
and it's not really it's not like, I mean, it's an autistic thing, yeah, for sure, definitely, I
Mhm.
think, for many of us. But like, yeah, there's loads of cultures who do not see themselves as separate,
Yeah, yeah.
and probably that's how we all were
But
pre-capitalism.
absolutely. But the thing is then, so if you don't understand who you are yourself, then you're also separate from yourself.
Oh yeah.
Same. So then you see, and when who you really are hasn't been validated, then you've kind of got you're at sea within yourself. You're looking. You don't know where to look. You don't know that it's yourself that you're looking for, really. You don't, as a child, you don't have a way of expressing that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You really don't. So if, for example, I'm going to say this now, but it's I don't have children. I will say that first of all. But I know what my experience has been, and I would say if there are parents out there kind of looking and they realize or they learn their child is autistic or their children are autistic, and the thing is that their experience might not be like their parents. But the thing is, because they're small children, they don't have a way to express that. So to parents, I would say absolutely bring love, support, encouragement, and an extremely intense level of curiosity about what is this wonderful being that my child is, and how can I validate that? Because you need to validate who they are, not who anyone wants them to be,
Yes.
and the thing is, finding that is a process of continual discovery. I mean, I've only known that I'm autistic less than a year and a half, and I know that this is a place of infinite discovery now. I couldn't have imagined being here having this conversation, and I can't imagine what the next year is going to be like. I couldn't have imagined discovering that I'm a poet. I couldn't have imagined taking a massive risk in which I did, in walking out of an entire career and taking a totally new, I suppose, a totally new change of direction and following my heart in an art and craft and design kind of area. So the thing is, but that's what validation does. When who you are is being mirrored back to you,
Yeah.
and when you start to discover that, and even though, say, for example, with a parent, they might be different to their child. So the thing is that finding out how to mirror those things, I think really that's going to come from a place of continuous curiosity. It's either, and as well, it's understanding their language of communication,
Yeah.
even if it's not verbal. Do you know what I mean? So if it's not verbal, whatever their form of communication is, it's understanding, what are they saying to me? What is it I'd like to know about their world. Does that make sense?
Absolute sense. And
Mm.
I'm just wondering about you when you were younger then, Alice, like when you were little, like, we, like, do you think you might have expressed yourself through poetry, like either vocally or written or whatever, at some point, and maybe turned away from it, or do you just feel like,
No.
No, you just feel like it's something you just never
No,
explored.
I mean, I wrote one thing for it. I mean, I remember a competition before, but it was a story rather. I loved books and I loved stories and fiction, and I read all day long. Anytime I got the chance. I suppose I hid in books because it was safer than, I was so sensitive, so books were very much my world when I was younger, so no, I never went looking for it. I never wrote. It was never something that I found and turned away from. It's absolutely something that I didn't even know that was within me, but I knew I had a lot to express, and I knew that I had a lot, I knew that there was a massive amount within me, even as a child. The way I saw the world was no different in a sense than it is today. It's just that I didn't have a means of communicating that. And, and people, I suppose the world is quite different now, and we feel more access to information. I'm kind of discovering more about what it is to be autistic, for example. Even with things like having a sensory profile letter, I never even knew that was part of it.
Yeah.
And that's a massive going, light bulbs everywhere going, oh my gosh, that makes like so much sense of my life. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Light bulbs with dimmer switches attached to them.
Totally. And as well with reducing heat, as well, and reducing noise and all other kinds of things. So isn't it? It's great to kind of find those things, but when you don't have that language when you're younger, and again, it wasn't even thought that women were autistic before. So like, I'm 52, I'm not 20. So it's not really a long time ago that they started to look at, really where obviously women were autistic as well. So again, there wasn't even that language or awareness really then.
Oh, no, I reckon, I mean, I don't know, I'm nearly 10 years now. And it's like, I think that was probably the start of it around then, when it's just like, there's just this explosion now of autistic women.
But it's great because sharing awareness though is important. And I suppose you see, I'd love to have seen, like the series that we're doing now, and this, the other episodes, I've seen them. I found it really informative. They were fantastic. I'd love to have seen that. Wouldn't I love to have seen that before and understood? It's so awakening. It's wonderful. It's kind of like a mirror. And I think on that note, I shall share a new poem if that's okay with you. Yeah.
Yes, please.
So this poem is called The Importance of a Good Mirror. Before I was a shadow of my being, the rest of me was hidden for safety. I internalized the rejecting reflection of others, and that created even more fear. I never had a good mirror until now. A good mirror does not impose the reflections of others. It helps you to see yourself clearly. It celebrates your being in all its forms of expression, and in doing so, it allows you to be.
Wow. I mean, I just think, and hopefully, let us know in the comments, anybody who's watching this, I just like, it's just so validating and so beautiful. I think to hear your journey is quite moving, actually. And I think as well, because it's beautiful, but we kind of are aware of the pain that's gone on under it as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think what's people see, they'll hear the poetry and they might relate to it or whatever, and often people assume that things are easy. I mean, I think the lives of most autistic or neurodivergent people, and particularly when they don't know where they're searching and they're not aware, and it can be very lonely. It can be very, very, very difficult. The world is kind of designed to meet the needs of the majority, not of people who have different needs, and it needs to change. Like loud environments, noisy, hot environments, that kind of thing. There are loads of things that could change. We all learn in different ways. Not everybody school doesn't suit everybody, whether they be, of course, neurotypical or neurodivergent. I mean, the thing is, we're all different. So there needs to be, we need to live in a world that meets, what people need. And I find it extraordinary that we're still looking for that, really. I find that, I mean, it's 2023. It's not the dark ages, and we're still looking for that. You
Well,
know, there's also no access to services for people. So I think that they're huge things that
they are, and like I just feel
change.
like that it's so frustrating at times. I think I don't know. I kind of flux between getting annoyed at stuff and just accepting it, just going, right, well, what can we do about it? But like the systems are just so slow, whether it's mental health services or schools or whatever. It just it's like literally, because sure, look at all the forms and boxes that need to be ticked before any change is made. And yeah, it's not good enough, you know. I suppose there's just a lot of people who are suffering, sensory environment and different types of learning, and like just the more time I engage now with parents in schools lately, you know, just the amount of kids who don't have a friend, Alice, who literally don't have anybody in school with them, and then the child doesn't go to school, and you're wondering, oh, is it that this, that, or the other? And I'm like, they're on their own. Do you want to be going somewhere on your own every day? Like, you know,
and you know what? I mean, I could say I experienced that myself, you know, because I suppose when you meet the world from a kind of a place of depth, not everybody really kind of likes that. You know, they're not interested in that form of communication and find it unsettling. You know, I can only be who I am. You know, I should intend to be far more myself than I've ever been in my entire life, and I look forward to discovering more of it. It's a continuous learning journey, you know, this process of unraveling. It's kind of like, I would describe it in a poetic sense, it's like writing myself into being.
Ooh.
Because I need the words to, the words are for me as well. They're not, you know, it's not that, obviously it's wonderful that other people relate to them. When I started writing at the beginning, sure, I didn't even realize anyone would relate to them. I kind of found it extraordinary. No, because I wrote them myself. It was for me traveling a journey of discovery, you know, and that discovery that I'm a poet and discovery that I'm autistic is all part of the same unraveling journey, and trying to figure out something major needs to change. You know, the way my life is not really how it suits me. It needs to change, you know. So
yeah, and like also, you know, if anyone's watching this, we can do unraveling, and we might not be a poet.
Totally. That's what no. That's what it is for me.
Yeah, I'm not a poet. I didn't discover any of those things.
But the thing is though that it is really, when I would say we need to really know ourselves in order to find out really whatever it is that we are in the world, whatever we bring to the world. I mean, for that, you can be the best, you know, that could be someone being the best parent ever. It could be being, you know, good at something, having a particular talent. It could be being a wonderful friend. It could be being a great listener. It could be whatever it might be. It's their presence in the world. But unless you're actually yourself and you discover that, and that's validated and supported and encouraged and brought into being, you know, lots of people may never know what it is yet. What is it that they bring in themselves? Because it isn't just being that we bring ourselves to the world. This is, you know, my direction in poetry, also my love of language and teaching, and also then my love of art and looking for a means to express that in creativity. I mean, there is the things there, for me, I've kind of worked out, there are the key things I think that I come here to this world with. You know, it's taken me so long, I'm 52, and to really, really be sure of that, to really be sure of it, you know, whatever else there is, I don't know, you know, I've an infinite amount of interests, you know, so that's one of my things as an autistic person. I suppose I'll never have enough time to learn what I'd like to learn.
Oh yeah, no, we won't. I think I accepted that long time ago, and I think that's why I found school difficult at times. I mean, this idea that you had to decide on what you wanted to be, and I'm like, but I had loads of interest. I loved loads of things. I loved languages. I loved science. There was just no way to put those things together. I loved English. Because, you know, it's like, no, you can only be this, and that, you know, even just what you're saying there is like we don't get it's what you will be is what we focus on with children and schooling. It's
Should
never
be who you are. Who
you
are
are.
you?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Who you are.
This
What
incredible, lovely being in front of me. Do you know, if you approach whether it be your child, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that way, I think that's just, I think it's so reinforcing, so validating. You know, it's so, and to bring curiosity to that, yeah. And it's really, you know, if it, I would say myself, it, you know, to really be in a place where you're really understanding yourself, that actually, even from for me, I'll be quite honest with you, it, you know, when you're in a place where you kind of don't know yourself and you're searching, that's an anxious place. But for me, understanding who I am is far less anxious now in that sense. And the thing is, anxiety is a big feature of being autistic, because for me, when, you know, if you've got, especially if you're incredibly sensitive, you know, which I am. So in that sense, because you pick up such a lot, do you know what I mean, in your environment, whether you can verbalize it or communicate it or not, you pick it up, do you know what I mean? So
yeah. And like also, do you know, if you don't know who you are, it's very hard to have those boundaries. And like that's mine. Like it's constant work for me. It's kind of reestablishing those boundaries. And I fall back into my bad habits very easily.
It is, because you need to learn to, sorry to interrupt you, Evelyn, apologies. It's kind of like if you don't know who you are, you don't know how to value who you are. You don't value it. So it's a growing place from the discovery of who you are and validating, supporting, learning to value that. And again, learning to trust. So I kind of think I might share a poem here, if that's okay. Then.
Yeah, please.
Because the process of validation then starts to bring a development of trust, and we must learn to risk then, and to be able to, you know, to try new things or whatever, and to learn, is this the right thing for me, and to just trust your decision-making process. Do you know what I mean? So this is self-trust. I did not fall. I was not pushed. I did not jump. I leapt into fate's arms, and there I learned to trust myself. I flew and was the catcher.
Ooh. I think that's one that I've seen already on Instagram, possibly.
I think it possibly is, or probably on Neuropride, maybe it could be there as well. Yeah, I can't remember what's on that, to be honest. So yeah, but yeah, and I think as the trust grows, who we are is allowed space to expand, because we're not afraid of it. We might be a bit afraid of it, but I think it takes a long time. For me, it's taken a long time to what I would call step into my own immensity, you know, because we are infinite, we are immense. We're not, you know, we don't fit in boxes, particularly. I'm saying that as a woman, we certainly don't. People do like to boxes into categories, you know, who are you? What are you doing for a job? This kind of thing, you know. And that doesn't serve anybody. It's not helpful. You know, I don't find it helpful to be described that way. But I think with validation and a kind of growth of trust, and we start to expand, you know, especially if that's supported, we expand. But then things must kind of move. And I thought I'm going to share a poem here, and about what it's like for this space of movement, which for me now is continual. I don't know when that will stop moving, if you understand. But anyway, we'll start with rearranging the furniture.
Ooh.
My inner and my outer worlds are moving, reclaiming and restoring my nature. The reconfiguring of my internal furniture is visible, reflected in my everyday reality. Though welcome, my expansion is disruptive. Proprioceptive confusion reigns. There is pressure to make space from within, but mine is now a gentle path forwards, and I will set my pace.
Oh, I love it. I actually just started stimming away there while it's your so like it's just so lovely. Yeah. It's like look. Do you know, and I've heard someone else talk about like moving furniture in a different, just kind of when you're healing trauma, that like if your room is full of all this furniture and you move one piece,
Yeah.
then that's just that one piece gone. And then like all the other pieces need to be, you need to rearrange things. And it's lovely that you've that imagery there as well. And like, yeah, I love that the outside changing while the inside is changing, and that kind of, it's that mirroring thing again, isn't it? And that kind of perspective. And I think that's actually, I talk about stimming in that way, that like it's a balancing what's on the outside, the external world, or what we call the external world, and what's internal. And I just, that
helping yourself to it's helping to regulate those changes, because I mean this is massive change for me. Massive change, and it continues to be, and again it is I mean it's huge for me. It is huge. It's emotionally huge. I mean it's not easy, I have to say that. It can be quite challenging, emotionally challenging. I'm sure many autistic and neurodivergent people will say the same. This process of I suppose unraveling and undoing sometimes well-meaning things which were not very helpful. Do you know what I mean? And then you must unravel that. So all of that growth into being requires a lot of movement in that sense. And I suppose that's how I describe it. It's kind of like the configuration of who I am is changing, expanding. And the more I allow that, and the more space, I give it, the more space it needs. So it's infinite. There we go. It continually needs space. Isn't that wonderful?
And it goes back to that, earlier on, we were talking about like us not being separate from the world around us. Of course, we're not. But, and then it's just like, and I love that, that idea of us expanding. Yeah. And like, I think that's the problem. The world is like, no, fit in here. We're like, no. And it's this constant struggle that causes more difficulty, I suppose, for a lot of us, because we're neurodivergent, because we're like, no, I need to expand. And like how we stand in our power, particularly as women, is just
absolutely huge. Oh, absolutely. So for me, even to do this, and even and at this level of vulnerability, I mean, this is huge for me, but it's also very empowering. It's for me, it's very empowering. It's owning. This helps me also to own my own story and own my own work, and step into a space that, this is who it is to me. This is what I have to share. And it's a step of learning that it has value, and that I am of value. And the thing is that it's, even a year and a half ago, could I have said anything like that? I couldn't. So this is a real growth journey, and for this is what it looks like for me. For other people, it might not be the same. Other people, nobody knows what their own journey is going to be. It could be different. This happens to be what it is for me,
Yeah. And I'm honored to be on this journey with you. It is.
Oh, thank you. I'm delighted. So thank you very much. It's so lovely, because also it's very hard for us to, when you don't live in a community where neurodivergent or autistic people, and I mean, you haven't even known yourself that you're autistic for very long. It's actually very hard to meet people. Do you know what I mean? I think in general it can be to meet, interesting people, or to meet people that you'd get on with, or so I think for us as well, it's a thing that the community, I think, struggles with as well. I say that for myself now. So
I had a call from somebody working with a 70-year-old woman who just found out she was autistic recently, this week.
Congratulations to her.
I'm like, I wish I could, give you a list of all these things that were happening in all these places you could go and meet. But, I suppose I did direct them to NeuroPride, which is a brilliant.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, they do a lot of online meetups, and also meal meetups in Ireland. We do picnics and stuff during the summer, which is lovely. But it is really hard. And I think I was just very lucky that probably the community was smaller, like 9 years ago. So I I kind of met people and met them quickly and connected. But it's hard to keep track of now. There's literally just the community. It's so big, and it's and it's probably a bit more difficult now. I'd imagine I would find that quite overwhelming now, because it's bigger.
But it's still great to know, and it means that so now that I know more who I am, I can it helps me to find that will help me in the future. And it was, I mean, for me, I remember I chanced reading some of these poems, you know, at the Autistic Pride event in Dublin, Autistic Pride Day. And honestly, I mean, I suppose I didn't even think anybody would relate to them. I kind of thought, I was terrified. I'll be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
You know? So it's interesting, isn't it? And that's a NeuroPride organized event, and I thought it was brilliant. It gave me an opportunity to see that I'm not the only one actually who feels like this. Other people relate to this, and it started a journey of me learning and testing and risking sharing it. You know, that's the kind of steps of risking those. You know, can I read this? Can I stand there and share it? How's that going to feel to me? Do you know? So they're my discoveries.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about mirroring and validation, like how beautiful is it to be like scrolling through Instagram or at an event and there's this person saying exactly what, you know what I mean? Like just talking about your experience, it's huge. Do you find, Alice, that you get, I'm just getting older as I get older. I think it's privilege being in 50, but I just have less and less kind of patience for people who maybe like aren't like me. And I just kind of like that before I'd make a huge effort with people that I had very little in common with. Do you know what I mean? That just was kind of a waste of time for both of us. Whereas I just kind of find I'm doing that less and less, like, you know.
But do you know what I think it is actually? It's I think when who we are begins to be met, we want to be met.
Yeah, you take
and I mean, and it's kind of like sometimes you can bump into somebody who's neurotypical, you know, or you know, and you can be met at a place, you know, they'll meet some part of you in conversation, you know, you'll have an interesting conversation, whatever it might be, whatever, you know, the encounter. Nature meets part of me as well, you know, in terms of, because I like spending time in nature and I feel comfortable in it, you know, I feel comfortable in it. So, and I write about it an awful lot as well. And it's kind of like a mirror for me. It gives me space to do that. But I think part of where maybe less patience or where the unsatisfactory kind of feeling comes from is that we're not being met in those places where we're not met, and we need to be met. And you know, life is short, and I sort of feel I'm 52 and I feel I've lost so much time in not knowing, and I know that I'm going to have major difficulty in meeting the loss that comes with that. I already know it. Do you know what I mean? So it's I want to be met in that sense, you know, whether it's and understood. And I don't want somebody to hear that I'm autistic and have some gobbledygook notion of what that means, you know, because the thing is that it means something different to all of us. But the thing is, meet the person. Don't meet the label, meet the person.
Yes.
So for me, I needed to understand and know that I'm autistic so that I began to learn, so all these other things affect autistic people. And, you know, because there's lots of different characteristics of being autistic, and it was extremely helpful for me to know that, you know, because I wouldn't have known it. But as regards other than that, you know, I wasn't going searching in, you know, for a label in that sense. Do you know what I mean? It was, but meet the person, no matter where you go, meet that person, you know, meet them where they're at. And you kind of learn then, you know, whether you feel, any of you feels met in that experience, you know, that I think that's the best way of me describing that. I don't think I've even thought about in that sense before, but right now in this space, this is what it feels like.
Yeah, and you know, because I think that's it. I think when we talk about like autistic just being part of our identity, people have this big thing about, and you're just like, but it explains our identity. It explains why we're sensitive. It explains why we're, you know what I mean? It explains so much, and that's, but it is a word. And then I just don't bother telling people sometimes because they don't know what it is. So like they have to go explaining it and justifying it, and then they're just looking at you like you're lying because they don't look autistic.
No,
you know.
Oh my gosh, that's so insulting, isn't it? I find that I kind of look and I go, jeepers, you know, gosh, we've such a lot of education to do, and it's not our job to educate everybody either. People should kind of make an effort to learn about things themselves, I think, you know. But the word is helpful in the sense that it tells me that there are other people with similarities to me. And when you feel like you don't belong, and when you feel like you're not like others, and that you're having difficulty with that, then it helps to know that there are other people that are similar in some respect to you, different in lots of others. So in that sense, the word is helpful, you know. So it's but again, it can be used unhelpfully if you're so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alice, you wanted to share some of your beautiful artwork. Do you
Oh,
want
you do, yeah.
to show us that now? So I actually just put them on slides, so I hope I've done them justice.
Fantastic.
And yeah.
Oh yeah. So in my college course then, so I'm doing 1 second now, I'll just wait for that image
Yeah.
to come back up.
Yeah.
Is it up on the screen for you? It's not up on the screen for me at the minute.
Oh. Well, I'll just do it the way it was then in case.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it might be an internet issue, who knows?
Oh, do you know what? I don't know what it is actually. This will here we go. That's better now, Alice, is it? Can you see it?
No.
What? You could see it initially.
Initially for a moment, yeah, whatever. There we go. We're back. Perfect. Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks very much. Fantastic. So yeah, in college, so I have a few different subjects, but printmaking is one of those subjects, and we were being taught, this is our first experience of doing a technique called dry point. But what I found interesting is that now my poetry and words, and of course my work is always imbued with meaning, so I started to bring words into my work. And although this is not clear, this is etched on either it can be glass, acrylic, polycarbonate, so it's a bit hard to see, but it's because it's learning experience, But the words here are, as I take each step, I unravel my unknown. And I think that this is why I wanted to share this piece. It is because, again, when we come back to that place of being validated, understanding more of who we are, learning to trust, and take to risk, try growing into ourselves, expanding further. But my experience is that as I take each step, I unravel more of this wonderful unknown. Who knows what else is out there, in a sense, do you know what I mean? But that's really the meaning of that particular piece.
It was gorgeous.
Thank you.
I absolutely love the idea of unraveling. And I think it's because some people think unmasking that it's like you can just take off this mask.
No.
Whereas unraveling kind of shows that there's just so many layers to it. So many, it's our mask is kind of wrapped up in us. Do you know what I mean? And it's
totally.
yeah. And I love that.
And as well, Evelyn, if you think about it, I'm 52, so I have 52 years of life experience, including a lot of invalidation and a lot of being crushed along the way. So, it takes so much time, and it's very painful to unravel lots of that, So the thing is, it's a slow process. So there's in no way, for me anyway, there's no way that you can kind of take off a mask. I wasn't even aware of the term actually for a long time. It's only the end of last year that I discovered the term. So in that sense, for me, it's unraveling, and all these small things, as they unravel, the way I describe it, as they unravel, they make space in me for me to emerge. And it makes a safer space for me to emerge, because we have to feel safe in ourselves. Because when we don't, sometimes, for me anyway, I'd say when I didn't really know who I was, it creates a kind of anxiety, and inside yourself, not to know who you are. If that makes sense.
It does make sense, and it explains and why sometimes people say we should push people out of their comfort zones, but they don't realize literally how uncomfortable that zone is, perhaps.
Yeah. Oh, people wouldn't. I don't think people understand that, and I think they kind of they're looking at just assume everything, or assume, particularly if you're intelligent. I think people are like that in all. I don't mean just with neurodivergent people, but with everybody, in your typical people included, is nobody. I don't think anybody finds things easy. Everybody has challenge in their life. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
And that's the thing. Look, everybody does have challenge in their lives, and I suppose it's just, and like, because sometimes when autistic people talk about the difficulties that we face, people kind of say, but sure, everybody has those kind of challenges. It's like, well,
not the same ones.
They're not the same ones.
No.
And we do have, I suppose, which was kind of hard to hear there. Like you talked about being crushed, like so many times, and and often we are crushed by throwaway comments, by someone else not wanting to be your friend, by whatever. Do you know what I mean? And that is how it feels. And I suppose that's it. Being a sensitive person makes you just so much more vulnerable to those kind of things, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Whether, and again, and that goes for everybody, but and I think being autistic in particular comes with certain sensory challenges and lots of sensitive in general challenges, and the world is not really made for sensitive people in my experience, and as well as that, other people don't seem to understand, so there's a lot of learning about all different types of people still to be done in both in Ireland, in our society, and just in the world, isn't there? There's a lot of learning to be done still to understand and communicate with each other better, and realize there's not just one way of being human, or 10 ways, or 50, or 1,000, or 1,000,000. There's so many ways of being human. We're just all different.
They are all different, and I suppose the problem is we're just kind of surrounded by this one image of what it is to be human on media and all of that, So that's the issue. If we just see more representation of minorities, a lot of us would just start meeting each other with kindness a bit more. Let's move on to this other beautiful piece that you've done. This beautiful copper bowl.
And and it's not the greatest photographer, I have to say now, but anyway, and again, because you can't quite see it all, but the message is pour trouver votre chemin, il faut s'écouter. So I brought my French language in there, but what it means is that to find our way or our path in life, we must listen to ourselves.
And that really is. It's such an important message for all of us watching this, listening to you here now, because we have taught ourselves we've learned from growing up. We must look to other people for validation. We must look to other people to tell us how we're feeling and all of that, because that's what's happened to us. We've been invalidated. And to start looking within ourselves and listening to ourselves, such important messaging.
Isn't it? Yeah. For me anyway, I find like it's, could anyone have discovered, have figured out what my path is for me? Not really. But I think though a certain, it is kindness, support, encouragement helps you to validate. Validation is important because it helps you to own the things that are unowned within you. Do you know what I mean? That opens up this space of discovery, and particularly when you discover that you're, autistic or neurodivergent, So and then as that space grows, for me anyway, it becomes far easier to continue to listen and listen and listen and listen. And it becomes, for me, it's a really curious discovery now of going, oh, but what else is there? Well, I'm kind of blown away by it. I find it's very emotional, and sometimes it's very overwhelming. And we're kind of, I think, as autistic people, overwhelm is a major feature, isn't it, of many autistic people's lives, because we experience the world in such a sensitive way, So so that's the meaning behind that piece,
And it's lovely, and it's an exciting journey, and and that's the thing. It's an emotional roller coaster, is probably how I describe it, because you're kind of revisiting some of your past. It's hurtful at times. You're kind of grieving what you didn't have and couldn't have, and the space that wasn't made for you in the world, and all of that. But then there's just this what amazing discovery and a connection with what's going on inside us. And that for me, when you were talking earlier, I was like, I clearly remember, and it's years ago now. It felt quite physical for me. It felt like parts of me were kind of connecting that hadn't connected internally for years, and actually going, oh, is this me? And kind of realizing that me was this little voice that was inside me all the time, that basically kept me safe throughout my life. That kind of I don't know, I suppose people talk about it being gut instinct or whatever, but it actually felt like that was me. And then it was connecting, kind of was I was different parts, that just connected, as in my thinking and my emotional state. And it was just quite a powerful thing that happened, and it's just, I kind of have forgotten about it. Do you know what I mean? You were talking about it, and I was like, oh yeah.
And then it is, Evelyn, and I'll come back to that too, in the sense of when I said, if I was if a parent was to ask one question about, whatever was important, for me, that's where the validation is so important, because now that I feel more validated, I mean, I never thought I had any intuition. It turns out it's immense. My intuition is immense. It's very, I couldn't have even said that a while ago, but I can say it now. It scares me sometimes. It's so immense, it really, but the thing is that if a child or a person is talked out of that place of trust in themselves, then they're not really in a safe place in themselves or in the world. They need validation, helps you to trust that space within and to grow and discover that space. And that space, if not everybody would necessarily have intuition, but they'll learn to trust their gut and to kind of feel when, something's not right. What's not right? I must look at that. Do you see what I mean? So if someone's not validated, they don't, and then they're kind of feeling like that is, that's not meeting who they are and where they are, then the thing is that they're not going to reach that place of discovering this gut place inside. Does that make sense?
Absolute sense. And I think you can be intuitive, about yourself and also what's going on with other people, without, I don't mean an assumptive make, like, I suppose that kind of, we do co-regulate as human beings. Emotions are contagious. So some of us are going to be a bit more sensitive to what's going on around us than others. And like, nobody's teaching us when we're small how to mind ourselves, like what it is to be an empathetic, intuitive, sensitive person.
Totally.
And how you mind yourself. In all of that, how you navigate that you don't take on everything that's not yours. Do you know what I mean? And then of course, other people around us don't have that understanding that kind of people exist. And you're kind of told, that's none of your business. Don't, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff, and that you're wrong and you couldn't possibly know, and all of that. And it's incredibly invalidating, isn't it? When that happens.
It is. And the thing is that again, I'm growing into that, and I mean, I'll be growing into it for the rest of my life, but I'm still learning to manage it, and I'll be learning that for the rest of my life, I'd say, Evelyn, of realizing about how much I kind of pick up in environments and how they affect me in a sensory way, because I'm so sensitive. So it takes a lot. I think it's a lifetime's living, if for most people, but when you have a lot of undoing and relearning to do, it's like relearning to walk in a way, it's relearning to be, it is.
And letting go of all the bad habits. Like as I said, I'm nearly 10 years on now, and it's the unmasking or unraveling kind of happened quickly for me. But it's the bad habits and the patterns that I've developed, and I'm now literally kind of retraining myself to go, do you need to take this on right now? Do you, and just work constant. But
Sorry, I think the other thing with that is, of course, we battle for me, I would be battling my insatiable curiosity for learning, and it's hard to push away the new thing that's come along, because you can go, but that's really interesting. So I think it was, it's remembering that we have human limits within that, just because we've got an insatiable kind of, for me anyway, desire to learn and learn more and learn more. So it's hard to put no limit on it.
Nobody has, like, and that's your energy. Like, that's your energy, and it's like, it's really exciting. Like, it's like, when you want to stay up late at night watching something on, and you're like, no, just go to, like, it's that internal thing. But like, arguing with yourself. But we haven't learned it.
No.
You know what I mean? And we're so emotionally, I find, for me, I'm like, oh my God, let's do this. Oh, let's do that. And it's like, ideas aren't an issue. It's reining them in.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. It is really, because, oh my God, ideas are definitely not an issue. I'd like 7 of me to kind of to work on all the ideas every day of the week, but it's just not possible. I've only got one of me,
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
But and let's talk about this beautiful color.
This is my first woven textile piece. So again, that's one of my subjects, and it's interesting when I started writing, because I had no idea that I was going to consider doing this course. So I didn't even consider this direction. It wasn't even on my radar, if you understand. So I certainly didn't know that weaving was part of it, you know, and I didn't know that tapestry was part of it. And yet I was intuitively, continually wrote the words of weaving, you know, without even knowing that one day that it would appear in my life, in a sense. But this particular piece is about, it's for me, it's the colors of neurodiversity. It's also a very vibrant color palette. It's a scarf that I've made on the loom. It's my first piece, but it also has its own poetry, and I'll read the poem first, maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
So the poem is called Reweaving 2. As I stand before the warping board, the tapestry of an old life lies behind me. In the present, I choose to reweave the framework of a new life. The warp provides structure and support. The threads and their direction are now mine to choose. I questioned the relationship between my many colors, and then I chose to begin as a rainbow.
Oh.
And for me, that's that owning all the multidimensional colors of me, you know. And for me, I would say if I had to give myself a color palette in a way of describing me, that's it, you know. And it's interesting that happens to be the colors of of representing neurodiversity as well in general. And but it really was it was kind of a place of honoring that part and not choosing one color, but to choose them all just in this piece, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's something we talked about before, like your artwork being an extension of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Want to go on to the next one?
Yeah, this is actually like about 4 inches in reality.
It is, yeah. This is a tiny, tiny little piece. So this is part of my college work as well, but it's actually a piece that's going to go to to go to an exhibition, a tapestry exhibition, and the exhibition is called Fate, Destiny, and Self-Determination. And that was the kind of theme we were given. And in that particular exhibition, it's normally based in Canada. I think it's in Spain at the moment. And it's where people can submit small pieces of weaving to be joined temporarily to the exhibition. And the criteria are that it has to be less than 4 inches, you know, in size, and it has to be an unusual shape and that, you know. So for me, I'd come up with a design in college, and the particular design didn't work out. But what I wanted to do is, of course, because of those themes, you know, fate, destiny, and self-determination, for me, it was never going to be about anything but my neurodivergent path that I'm taking and the discovery of who I am and the absolutely life-changing difference that makes to me. So in the piece then, I was looking for a way to represent that. And you know, I was looking for a path, and what do I put at the end of the path? How do I show somebody walking on a path? What, you know, where is it going? That kind of thing. And I kind of had looked at lots of research, and I'd looked at, you know, different images, and I'd taken this picture of a door. I was looking at doors and doorways and arches and things, but I saw this lovely picture of a lock, you know, the way a lock, or if where the key goes in, it's often circular at the top with a triangle at the bottom. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. But when I looked it up, Evelyn, I learned that the keyhole, you know, in a lock is also a keyway. And of course, my discovery that I'm autistic and multiply neurodivergent is, of course, my key path. It is a key way for me to understand my life. So in that sense, it's the path. The person has walked the path. The path is the colors, of course, of neurodiversity. I've put kind of flowers at the side, or color, you know, that are ahead of each step to kind of welcome each color forward as such. And then at the end of the path, you've got somebody, and I call that into the infinite unknown, because, you know, when as you're walking through that, I realized, so this is not an ending. This is the beginning of unraveling who knows what, but an infinite amount of things. I don't know what they are. So it is a way of representing that for me. And I suppose, well, afterwards, I think it was about the next day when I could finish it, and, you know, this tiny, tiny little thing. It's like about this size. Yeah. And I suddenly realized, about the position of where the person on the path is, in the archway there. And then I kind of went, oh my gosh, I am the key to my very own lock, which I thought really was extraordinary. Again, it's back to this discovery of who we are and how important it is to know that.
Oh, it's I suppose, yeah, like I'm just nodding along to what sounds very simplistic, I suppose. I'm the key to my own lock. I'm the, you know what I mean? It's not, but it's just not at all. Like there's so, yeah,
No.
there's so many layers to it. I think your last piece, there are so many just literally levels to it. The key and all the different meanings and the lock and everything.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful representation of like what unraveling has been.
Who knows? And who knows what else I'm, going to make, but I can see, I see on me now that these are wonderful ways of me expressing different parts of me. I'm definitely a process kind of oriented artist in that, I need to have meaning in my life. I've always needed that, but I also make things with meaning. I imbue words with meaning. I imbue meaning in whatever it is that I'm creating. It's part of how I express myself. Do you know what I mean? The world in that way. So
yes, I would talk about things having to make sense, but it's meaning as well for me is
yeah.
And you know what I loved? I suppose the kind of overarching theme is that like you're just really enjoying this journey with its ups and downs. We're not pretending to anybody that's all lovely and roses.
But you're joking me, it's surely not. Yeah. I can be quite honest with you and say it absolutely is not. It can be an incredibly lonely journey, actually. I think many people will relate to that, and maybe people who are questioning, whether they're autistic or neurodiverse. I'd say, they've experienced that as well. I'm saying I can say that for myself. It can be extremely lonely. Is it worth it? Oh my gosh.
But it's nearly something that has to be lonely. It's kind of nearly something you have to do alone, isn't it? Like
nobody can do this for me. No, and it's I suppose the gift is now that there's more awareness, for example, if a young child and parents are more aware now, and there's more information, they can bring a different experience to a child's life now, and they can support that. But ultimately, when that child is older, they're going to have to navigate this journey themselves, just like everybody does, So.
Well, hopefully they won't have the amount of unraveling to do that we've been doing, because
I hope not, yeah.
I mean, that's why we're out here having these conversations.
Totally.
Why we're sharing experiences, so that the world will change and that people can be more and more their authentic selves, because there's a lot of effort when you haven't lived a life not being authentic, do you know what I mean, to find your way back. And just before we finish, Alice, I suppose, like it's just, because you've mentioned it a couple of times in different ways, that like we always kind of associate like the darkness or like the keyhole, or that journey into the unknown as scary, and and I think and I've heard other women talking about this, is that like actually embracing the darkness, and that actually it's kind of nearly a way to oppress women, actually. Like,
but the thing is that when you're sure of who you are, it makes it easier to take steps, including fearful ones, including ones that I don't know if this is going to work out. Is this a good idea or not a good idea? Do you know what I mean? It's so it makes it. But if you really feel like you're sitting in a firm place in yourself and understanding yourself, you've got a place to step from. Do you know what I mean? It feels safer to embrace these unknown things. And to be honest with you, like I would have preferred known things. What am I doing? Where am I going? I would have preferred the known. Now I'm in a new place of embracing. I don't know what this unknown is, who knows? But because I'm in a better place of trust in myself, of sureness of who I am and how I see the world differently to probably most others, that's just the reality of it. That makes it easier for me to embrace unknown, if that makes sense.
It does.
I think on that note, I have two final poems, if that's okay. Maybe would that be all right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I have this one on my Instagram, but I thought I'd read it. I'd read it again. It makes a big difference to me, and to write it, you know, even for myself. So it's called Celebrating My Difference. I always knew I was different. Did you? How I saw and met the world didn't fit with others, or rather, they didn't fit with me. I wish I'd known before now that my neurodiverse differences were such gifts, and especially that I am not faulting. I am autistic and dyspraxic. Knowing that is a gift. That gift is now belonging to myself. I am no longer separate. I am me.
Thank you so much for sharing that one with us.
Oh, and I have one final one, if that's okay. And I suppose, and this is, it's kind of a new one, so it's I haven't really read it much, that's all we'll see. But I suppose, you know, I've searched for so long about kind of wondering what would, you know, what was happiness for me, what was the right thing for me. You know, again, that eternal secret. I don't think I'll ever be any different, but I've now my quest is slightly different. You know, it was always about finding, you know, finding purpose, meaning. It's, you know, finding my truest path. Now it is living and being that path for myself, you know, and discovering that I'm mostly neurodivergent, including being autistic, is, I mean, to say it's positively life-changing. I mean, there are not enough words even for a poet to describe how important that is for me. It's been really extraordinary. So my last poem then is called Happiness. Your greatest chance of happiness is to know yourself deeply. Be infinitely curious about your way of being in this world. Become aware of the infinite possibilities within you. Know what makes you feel alive. Find environments that suit you best and inhabit them fully. If you are looking for others, there you will find your tribe. Do not be afraid of your shadow. If you think you do not have one, perhaps you haven't yet been tested. We are light and dark. As you grow and change, reconsider what you need. Do it often. We are here for such a short time. It is never too late to begin.
Wow. Oh.
You.
But you know, powerful words and so true. And we are only here for a short time. And like, I suppose while I don't know, I'm ridiculously positive. While it's like, you know, I think for a while I spent time regretting, you know, I didn't know I was autistic when I was younger and all that kind of stuff. And then I just went, but like, I know now.
Yeah.
And look at, yeah, and like,
Yeah.
look at your life and the massive change that's come
Yeah.
into it the past
Yeah.
year or so. It's, and like, and do you know what I love? It's just like that, like, I know you've kind of tried, you know, you've started sharing and it's becoming more and more, you're
Yeah.
more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But that need to share is there within us as well.
Yes, it is.
To help
It is.
others. Yeah.
But it's to communicate. I mean, that's what we're here for, to communicate who we are, our truth. Like every single person has a unique aspect to them. And it's how we all bring that together and bring it into being. Wouldn't that be quite a world? Wouldn't it? If we were, wouldn't it be quite a world if we all got to actualize who our truest selves and truest path were? I mean, it's what we're here for. After all my years of searching, I suppose that's my answer. Do you know, that's where I am, I suppose.
But I think it's a pretty good answer. You know what I mean? It is, isn't that what we are supposed to be here for? To grow or to expand, to grow, to see the inner light within everybody and connect with that.
Yeah.
Not superficial stuff. Well, that would be my belief.
Yeah,
Also.
that's my sense. It's how I am. You know, it is that the super. I mean, to be honest with you, like there's nothing about me that's surface. That's just it. It's nothing at all about me that's surface. You know, people find that disconcerting sometimes. You know,
You
but
know what?
it is who I am.
Yeah, and I just feel, as I said, the older I get, I'm like, some people just aren't able for the deepness and the connection and what's going on in here. Some people just aren't, and then
that's okay.
And that's okay. They're not the people for us, you know, on that time or that occasion. Alice, I think, yeah, I just really, today was just such a beautiful experience, and I could talk to you, you know, we could listen to your poems all day long. We will let people know where to find your poems in the comments, and how to connect with you on Instagram and all of that. We'll pop everything in the comments. And I suppose one of my biggest takeaways from today is just that expanding. This is kind of what I can see is like just expanding that inner light, and how that light actually makes us more comfortable then in the darkness, and to embrace the unknown.
I have there's a French piece of art beside me here, and it says in French, it is nous ne sommes rien, soyons tout, and it means we are not nothing, be everything. And I mean that's not be what you are to be for you. Do you know what I mean? It's everybody is different, everyone is different, you know, different lives, different experiences. This is what it is for me. It doesn't mean that it's going to be for everybody, you know, but be yourself. Absolutely own that wonderful being that you came here with. Yeah, that would be my message. Can I say thank you for the space? It's been really lovely. It's I could never have believed that I would do this, you know, and I'm so glad I did. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm just honored that you feel safe to do it with me, and our lovely audience. That's for me too, Alice. So it has been absolutely lovely. Thank you so much. And I don't even know how to end this. I don't have any poems.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see what people's comments are, and I'm hoping to make a recording available. You know, I've recorded some of these tracks, but I'm hoping to make that available. And again, I think Evelyn's, because I'm no good at this kind of social media and this kind of thing, so I know Evelyn will know how to put the comments and all that kind of thing in the box. But it'll be interesting just to see what people, you know, what other people take from it, and if it's been interesting for them.
I'm sure it has. Absolutely. You've taken us on our own little path, our own little journey today. So thank you so much, Alice. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.